So this is going to be a recent spins video. Now I've not done one of these in 2022 and no particular reason for that I guess other than it's just I've been mainly listening to new things into the collection. The idea of recent spins is that it's things that I pulled off the shelf from years ago, records that I'm trying to get reacquainted with. Yeah, thought it was time to do one. I've got 6 records here that I've been listening to over the last few weeks. So let's get started. So this first one is a band that I really don't know much about at all. This is Midnight Oil and Blue Sky Mining. Now I picked this up a couple of years ago and it was off the back of a video by somebody who doesn't make videos anymore. It's a great shame that he doesn't, because he was one of my favourite people on the VC, and that's Ross. His channel was called Vinyl Boy Trigger and then he changed to Trigger Tunes. Lovely chap down in Australia and doesn't really post anymore. So he is missed. He was a big fan of these guys, big fan of Midnight Oil, and he did a collection video. This is going back a few years now, and this is a record that I used to see around a lot back in the day. Such a distinctive cover, really good cover actually, but didn't know much about them. So I picked this up. I don't know where I got this from now. It may have been a charity shop find, and I played it a couple of times back when I bought it. But you know, I hadn't really listened to it a great deal, so I thought this would be a nice one to feature. And really nice label actually, beautiful. Look at that, custom label. So yeah, I enjoyed this record. Like I said, I don't know anything about them really, but it's obvious from listening to the music or from listening to the lyrics that they have a strong ecological, environmental concern. Most of the songs do have a a definite, specific lyrical angle to them, to do with the environment and to do with greedy corporations sponging on us all. Look at that! I've got a thing that's stuck in there. The new Midnight Oil. That might have been a sticker that was on the front, which I've stuck on the inside there. Musically, the band that they reminded me of a little bit was The Church. They've got a kind of nice weaving of guitars going on. Definitely a kind of late 80s sound. Shades of the big music coming through. They've got that kind of radio-friendly, pumping rock sound, big booming drums, but some really nice guitar interplay, melancholy vocals and just nice tunes, nice melodies. The first track, Blue Sky Mine, is absolutely fantastic. Great anthemic 80s rock song. Be nice to find some more records by these guys and never see them around. I don't recall now how many albums they've got in their catalogue, but I'll try and link Ross's video down below, the video that I saw, if it's still there. I don't even know if his video is still there, but it was an interesting video where he showed all their records. So yeah, anyway, that was a nice one. Midnight Oil and Blue Sky Mining. Okay, so this next one was inspired by Rob Ison here on the VC. Rob, I think he picked this album up from his local dealer, and it was one that I'd bought a few years back and hadn't listened to for a long time. And he sung its praises in the video. So I thought, okay, that's good enough reason to dig it out. So I did, and here it is. It's Blue Jays. So we've gone from Blue Sky Mining to Blue Jays, and we go in one fell swoop. So this is Justin Hayward and John Lodge, and it was an album they made in 1975, which I think was when the Moodies were on hiatus at the time. Comes with a booklet. Rob showed this booklet in his video, and I left a comment saying, "Oh, I don't think mine's got a booklet," but it has. And on the back you can see Tony Clark, the producer. I think he was the guy that produced a lot of the Moody stuff, wasn't he? There he is. And then some of the musicians who played on the record, and there's Justin and John. So my understanding is that the Moody Blues kind of split up in the mid-1970s. One of those bands, a bit like Led Zeppelin, who did a lot of work early on. You think of them as being a 1970s band, but they'd kind of done a lot of the stuff by the end of the 60s. A lot of their important albums had already been recorded. Moving into the early 70s, I guess, there's a big run of albums, 5-6 albums. So by 75, they'd basically paused or maybe even split up. I know they reformed later. But obviously Justin and John decided that they'd not had enough of working together, so they came together to make this record. I love the kind of mystical, mist-wreathed imagery. There's something very Moody's about it, isn't there? And it's on the beautiful Blue Threshold label. Really nice album. It's got a real flow to it. The Moody Blues, I don't always 100% enjoy their records. I find them to be a bit patchy sometimes. I will do a Moody's video at some point, and in that video I'll explore how I kind of feel about them. But what struck me about this record is that it seemed to have a more organic flow to it than some of the Moody's records, more consistency. It's got that rock symphonic sound, lots of layering. Even though it's not the Moody's, there's quite a lot of Mike Pinder style mellotron, I guess. But nice songs. Justin and John carve it up between them, and there's a couple of co-writes as well. Just a very mid-1970s soft prog rock album, really. I mean, there's no shades of the Stooges or the MC5 in there. You know, you're not going to get that with Justin Hayward and John Lodge. But a really nice listen. Past half an hour very pleasantly, and it's one that I would like to think is not just going to vanish back onto the shelf for the next 3 years, you know. So thank you, Rob, for reminding me of that one. Right, this next one, I've been on a bit of a kick with this band recently, and this is one I wanted to feature because it doesn't get a lot of love or attention, and I think it's a fantastic record. This is Protest Songs by the wonderful Prefab Sprout, and this is Wendy Smith here on the cover. She was their vocalist for quite a few years back in the 80s. This is a wonderful record. I first heard this back in 1990 when I was a student. I had a friend who had a lot of really good music in his collection. He had this on cassette, and I can still remember the afternoon when he played it for me in his room, in his house here in Lancaster, and I loved it. I fell in love with Prefab Sprout, and you know, this is one of the records which flies under the radar. A bit of a complex history. It was their fourth album. It was recorded quickly, straight after Steve McQueen, which is known as being their masterpiece, I think. It's certainly the one that most people talk about. It was quite successful. It was produced by Thomas Dolby. Paddy McAloon decided he wanted to quickly record a follow-up, so he did so. But then the album was shelved. I think it was recorded in about 1985. The album got shelved for some reason. The band ended up doing the Langley Park to Memphis album, which came out. That was a huge hit, and then this then came out in 1989, I think. So a bit of a strange history, tortured history. Not quite sure why it was put on hold like that, but it's a fantastic album. Just the most perfectly formed pop nuggets that you've ever heard in your life. Here's the inner. It is quite low key. There was a hit single, or a single. I don't know how many big hits the Sprouts had. Life of Surprises, which is a wonderful song. Then you've got Horse Chimes, Wicked Things, beautiful kind of acoustic song at the end of side one called Dublin. And then on side two it hits a kind of quite a fun little groove with a song called Tiffany's, which has got a bit of a jazz feel to it. Diana, Talking Scarlet, great song at the end called Pearly Gates. It's perfect Paddy McAloon from start to finish, and the band just sound wonderful. Neil Conti on drums, always a very sophisticated player. Martin McAloon on bass, just an incredible bass player, so underrated. And then of course you've got the breathy interplay, vocal interplay between Paddy and Wendy, which is just absolutely magical. So yeah, really, really nice to revisit that one, and I have been on a bit of a Sprout kick recently, like I said, so I may have to do a video at some point. Got a couple of gaps in the collection, which are a bit annoying. May have to put those right. Okay, so we're halfway there. Now this next one, this is a wonderful album. I love this record, and it's not a faultless album. It's got certain issues with it, but I just love it. I always enjoy it. And this is B.B. King, and There Is Always One More Time. Now, the first blues song I think I ever heard came from this record, The Blues Come Over Me, which was played on Bob Harris's Radio 1 show back in the early 90s. I heard it and was just swept away by it, just mesmerising guitar playing, wonderful melodies. It's not pure blues, it's definitely kind of AOR rock blues, but it's B.B. King, so you know, you're never going to stray too far away from the roots. Anyway, I heard that, loved it, went down to probably Virgin Records or Our Price in Leeds the next day and bought it on cassette. I actually had a cassette of this record. Maybe I couldn't find the vinyl or couldn't find the CD. Bought it on cassette, loved it, played it in the car for many years, and then when I ditched my cassette I kind of lost it. And I'd sort of forgotten about this record, and then a couple of years ago I found this copy in Oxfam here in Lancaster. I think it was priced at about £10. but it's in absolutely beautiful condition. And I mean, it comes from 1991, when, you know, records had really fallen off the map. Nobody was buying them, very few were sold. So I feel very lucky to have found this, and I just think it's a wonderful album. It's, you know, you're not going to find scratchy old blues on it, but B.B. King was never really about that, I don't think. He was always from the more sophisticated, you know, the kind of jazz side of blues, if you will. You know, he did a lot of big band stuff. This record, it's an early 90s album, you know, so it's got a lot of guest players on it. I noticed Neil Larson is on here, who was a classic keyboard playing journeyman from back in the 1970s and 80s. I've got so many records with him on. He's a very tasty player. You've got lots of other people on guitar playing rhythm, I guess, because B.B. King was not a rhythm player, and it's definitely got a sheen to it. But the songs are strong, really, really great playing from B.B. And the actual title track, There Is Always One More Time, at the end of side 2, is just magnificent. So as long as you don't mind a bit of kind of AOR polish on your blues, you will like this record. And if you're not a big blues fan, and you know, you don't think you like the blues, this also will appeal to you, because it's more in the vein of kind of pop music with a bit of rock, and then you've got B.B. King's guitar playing. So yeah, just love it, and always be one of my favourite albums. I think it could even be in my top 100. You know, it's just absolutely fantastic. I've always liked it, and it kind of brings me back to a sort of a happy time in my life, I guess, early 90s. So yeah, nice to revisit that one. Right, this next one, this was bought from a man who put a notice up in my local supermarket saying he had records for sale. So I went round to his house. Lovely guy called Tony. He works at the local Bernardo's store here in town, sorting through the charity shop fodder. He's got a big record collection. I went round to his house and he had a box of records that he was selling. So I pulled this one out along with a few others. This is going back a couple of years now. And it was a band that I'd heard people talking about on the vinyl community, but didn't know anything about them, so I thought I would grab it. This is Golden Earring and their album Switch. Now, this came out, I'm going to guess 1974. I could be completely wrong. 75. Golden Earring were a Dutch band, I think, and I guess they fall into the category of progressive rock, art rock. I've been reading about Queen recently. I've been reading a good Queen biography, and apparently Queen, I think Queen came number 2 or number 3 in the NME readers' favourite bands of the year in 74 or 73, and Golden Earring came first. So they were clearly a well thought of band, you know. And this is a good album. It's never been one that's really grabbed me by the throat. I remember when I bought it at the time thinking it's an enjoyable album, kind of maybe a bit of a period piece, but it's certainly got some interesting stuff on it. Interesting playing, interesting vocal interplay, quite strong songs, good playing. I mean, it's definitely got that kind of mid-1970s, not hardcore progressive, but definitely got a bit of a flavour of art rock in there, definitely. Quite kind of poppy in places too, definitely quite radio friendly. I had another album by these guys. I think I picked up perhaps an early 80s one, and I ended up moving it along because it was quite weak. This one, I guess, maybe is from their heyday, from their golden period. I don't know. I don't know much about them, but I'm pleased that I grabbed it from Tony's box, and it is one that I go back to actually occasionally. It's not one that sleeps on the shelf, you know, year after year. But it was nice to dig it out on this particular occasion. So yeah, Golden Earring and Switch. And that one is just on Red Polydor. And this last one is a record that I've been meaning to pull out for so long, and I finally went for it. This is a record that I think it comes from the 90s, 91 again, interestingly. So I assumed back in the day that this would be a difficult album to find, again, because it comes from that period when, you know, nobody was selling records or buying records. And then I found one on eBay for not that much money, so I was really delighted to pick it up. This is Rock On by Shannon, and it's got a slightly annoying sticker on there that won't come off. But this is another one that I had on cassette. Would have been when it first came out, I think. I had a friend who was really into the Wilburys and all the kind of associated acts, and he got this record, and we had a driving holiday and he had it on cassette, and we played it and played it and played it. It's got the great song Walk Away on it, which is a really fantastic pop rock song. And Del Shannon on this record, it's produced by Jeff Lynne. It's really strange. There are a few tracks which are not produced by Jeff Lynne. There's a couple that are produced by Mike Campbell from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. There's 3 tracks produced by him, but it's really strange. All 3 of them just sound exactly like the Jeff Lynne songs. So I'm not sure if there was some deal cut between Jeff and Mike, where Mike said, "Look, can I have the production credit on these 3 songs?" Because I mean, we all know what the Jeff Lynne production sounds like, and these 3 tracks, they just literally sound exactly like Jeff Lynne productions. So not quite sure what happened with that. But a bit of a kind of sad postscript to this record, because Del Shannon took his own life shortly before the record came out. I think at the time, he was addicted to painkillers, he was having certain problems, and he ended up committing suicide. But quite sad, isn't it, really? I mean, Del was a fantastic talent, somebody who kind of made it big early on, and then he kind of really lost his way, I think. Maybe he had personal problems, but commercially he didn't really hang in there. And really, he should have been in the Wilburys. I mean, he was friends with Jeff Lynne and George Harrison and Tom Petty, I think, around about the time that the Wilburys were coming out. And maybe if he lived, maybe he would have replaced Roy Orbison in the Wilburys. I don't know. Anyway, that wasn't to be. Interesting, it's on Silvertone Records, which I associate with the Stone Roses. That's quite nice. No idea how he came to be on that label. So just some really nice, well-written pop rock songs, quite downbeat. Del Shannon had a melancholy streak to his songwriting and his lyrics. But a couple of quite nice upbeat ones. Let's Dance at the end. It's got a really nice vibe to it. Del writes all the songs on the record on his own, apart from Walk Away, which was Del Shannon, Tom Petty and Jeff Lynne. And it does sound like a Wilbury song, really. It was just really nice to go back to this one. It's a record which I do kind of cherish in a way. It's one that takes me back to a happy time again. And a bit of a shame there is that sad postscript as far as Del was concerned. But it's nice that he went out with a good, strong album. So there we go, Del Shannon and Rock On. So that's it, 6 records, and that was a well overdue recent spins. Hopefully there'll be another one before 2022 is out. So hope you enjoyed that. Leave some comments below. Let me know if you know any of those records, got any opinions on them, and that'll be cool. Okay folks, I will love you and leave you. Take care. Bye.